Our first post is by user AlexPearson17, titled, Entitled Mum Demands I Buy Her and Her Kids Food. Just putting this out there that if I knew beforehand that this entire thing would happen, I would still let it happen. There is a local burger place in my area that I visit regularly. It is normally empty during the week, but on this day, for whatever reason, there were a few more people in there than normal. I was with a close friend. We'll call him Carlos. I just wanted to hang out with him and get some food. We're standing in the line and talking for about 2 minutes when entitled mother and her 2 boys, I'd guess they were younger than 10, walk up behind us. One kid starts fussing and whining that he's hungry, and this seemingly triggers the other kid to do the same. Carlos and I just shrug it off, and eventually get up the front of the line, and we order our food. Carlos orders before me, but I let the cashier know that I'd be paying for both mine and his meal. Well, that was a mistake. Before I even get my wallet out, entitled mother shoves me out of the way and says, "I'd like to add to his order," and proceeds to order over $40 worth of food for her and her 2 kids. I asked her what she thought she was doing, and she said, "I saw you pay for that guy, Carlos, so I'm sure you wouldn't mind buying food for a single mother and her 2 children. Normally, I would have considered that if she, asked first. But who in their right mind thinks it's okay to do what she did? I'd tell her that I won't be doing any paying for her of any of her food, and that she's setting a bad example for her kids by trying to get free stuff from people. That comment pissed her off, and she started getting all up in my face. I'm not sure if that was meant to intimidate me, but I'm 6'2", and that lady was no taller than 5'5". She raised her voice saying, "Don't you dare tell me how to parent my kids. You have no idea what it's like being a single mum and raising 2 boys on your own." I retort saying, "Yeah, you're right. I don't know what it's like, but I wasn't the one who told you to get knocked up. Twice. So I really don't want to hear your single mum excuse for being an a-hole." I made sure not to say the full word in front of her kids, and any other kids in the restaurant. But after that comment, she didn't care. "Who the hell do you think you are, talking to me like that?" The guy who, up to 2 minutes ago, you had no problem trying to spend his money. "I work 2 frickin' jobs to provide for my kids, and you think it's okay to stand here and disrespect me?" You disrespected me by cutting in front of me and assuming that you would get free food from me. I don't know what world you're living in, but you need to come back to Earth. "Me and my children are hungry, and you can't even be nice and help us out?" You literally ordered $40 worth of food for yourself and 2 kids, at possibly the cheapest place in town. That isn't just helping out, and you and your kids being hungry still doesn't make you entitled to free food. You pay just like everyone else in here. The entitled mother then stops shouting, "I don't have any money. How would you feel if you were in my situation?" Listen, lady, you're not getting free food off me. If you'd have just asked, I would have been more inclined to be nice and help you, but you clearly think that being a single mum with 2 kids is supposed to make everyone around you do whatever you say. And the world does not work that way. So pay for your own food and stop wasting my time. Entitled mother just looked at me angrily and did not answer. At this point, everyone in the restaurant is looking and listening to the conversation. My buddy Carlos is about ready to deck the lady, and the people behind us in line are clearly unhappy. I tell the cashier to remove whatever she ordered, and I pay for my food. I thought that would be the end of it, but boy was I wrong. Entitled mother orders her food again after, and angrily forks over the money she clearly had and pays for her food. Carlos looks at me and says, "What the frick just happened?" To which I respond, "Your guess is good as mine, bro." We get our food and are about to leave when entitled mother shouts out, "Those 2 guys harassed me," and we turn to see the manager of the restaurant. She goes on to say that I inappropriately touched her in the restaurant in front of her 2 babies, and she wanted the cops to call on me immediately. This lady clearly forgot that the entire store witnessed the entire thing, and no one was having it any longer. I didn't need to say much to defend myself to him before the entirety of the store started shouting and screaming at her for holding up the line and falsely accusing me of molesting her. I'm pretty sure the lady felt like she would have been punched in the face at any second, because without collecting her food, she took her 2 kids and ran out of the store. Carlos and I looked at each other and started dying of laughter, and a few people did as well. We apologized to the manager and everyone else for the inconvenience and left the store. We haven't stopped laughing about it since then. And our next story was posted by user Rion24, titled, "No, Karen, I won't move from an aisle seat in a main cabin extra to a middle seat in the back of the plane." I've read the horror stories, but never had to deal with the seat switcher until recently. That's been to my dismay, as I thoroughly enjoyed seeing entitled people get put in their place. I was on a 4-hour flight within the US in an aisle seat in a main cabin extra, 3-to-3 seating. Another 30-something guy had the window seat, and a kid who looked to be around 10 was in the middle. I was settled in and reading my magazine when I sensed someone standing over me. Entitled mother, in a somewhat bitchy tone, goes, "Can you switch seats with me?" I go politely, potentially, where's your seat? Just in case it was first class, which I knew there was pretty much no chance of. Just a few rows back. Which seat specifically? 27E? I give her a mild WTF facial expression. No, that's a middle seat in the back of the plane. Also, one thing to know about me is I'm an invertebrate movie quoter. Entitled mother's tone remained bitchy for the rest of the ordeal. "But I want to sit next to my son." That's not a me problem, that's a you problem. This has now become fun for me. "I need to sit next to my son." Did you ask people in 27D and F if they'd switch seats with your son? The entitled mother with an incredulous facial expression. "No." Well, you'll almost certainly have more luck offering up a better seat than asking someone in main cabin extra who paid extra money for their seat to go to the back of the plane. "My son needs to sit next to me." The kid has been quietly fiddling with his iPhone the entire time, so he's clearly old enough to sit unaccompanied. He looks alright to me. "Are you gonna move or not?" "Not." "Come on!" Me, Rion24 that is not coming on anything. Yes, I referred to myself in the third person just this once. Guy in the window seat starts chuckling under his breath. Entitled mother becomes even more incensed. "You're an asshole." And the flight attendant approaches us. "Hey guys, is there a problem? This guy won't get out of my seat." I shake my head in disgust, pull out my phone, and show the flight attendant my boarding pass. "Ma'am, this is this man's seat. You'll have to go to your seat. Or get off the plane." Entitled mother shot daggers at the flight attendant and me, and then slunk to the back, muttering expletives. Guy in the window gave me an approving nod. The kid was polite to the flight attendants and stayed put the whole flight. I couldn't believe the goal of this woman. She probably booked at the last minute and planned this by putting her son in the seat up front. This was definitely one of the most memorable flights, and I even got to throw in some Boogie Nights and Harold and Kumar references too. Our next story was posted by user Toby7769, titled, "You Can't Stop Me." A bit of background. I'm a swim mum and a swim coach, which is not important to this story. My son swims for this rec swim, and during the off-season, he keeps in swim shape doing the clinics at the same pool. Today, I was driving by this pool and saw people using the parking lot, and it reminded me of this story. The pool is a co-op pool, which means it's basically a private pool, not public. There's 3 schools by this pool: elementary, middle, and high school. The middle school hosts the soccer games on their back field, which is next door to the pool. Across the street is the high school and a huge parking lot. Parking is scarce on the street, so it's hard to find a place to park. Now that the story is set, let's get into the reason that I'm here. I'm parking in the pool lot, which holds 12 spots. Not a problem for off-season. In comes this huge SUV, which parks and takes up 2 spots. I'm thinking, I don't know this car, but hey, might be a new parent. I'll just tell them they need to move to 1 spot. Now, remember, this is off-season, so the only equipment these kids swim in and need is a bag with suit, towel, and goggles. Dad goes back to the tail of the SUV and unloads a wagon, ice chest, and 2 chairs, and starts to head off to the soccer field. And I say, hey, you can't park here unless you're using the pool. Oh, I was told I could park here, so frick off. This is private property. You'll be towed if you leave your car. And I point to the tow sign. You cannot tell me I cannot park on public property. This is not public property, though. Where do you suppose I'm supposed to park? They're supposed to park at the high school. And I say, not my problem. You need to move as we are using our lot. Dad decides he's going to push it. I'm calling your bluff, and I'm going to watch my son play. Would you let strangers park in your driveway? I think if you came home, you would have had said car removed, am I right? This driveway belongs to the people who own the pool. We will be removing your car. And I turn inside to go call. Fine, do whatever. But if my car isn't here when I get back, I'm contacting my lawyer. Needless to say, it was the first car we ever towed. It was not there, as any other pool member called while we were talking, and the truck got there rather quickly. I could hear the parents tell him he needed to move his car, as well, as it's not that far. No lawyer would ever take that case, I'm sure. Besides, we never heard anything. It was back in 2015. I have friends whose kids play soccer, and apparently he was told by the coach to move his car, other parents and his son. When he came back and it was gone, I was told he tried to take the door off of the pool building, and we were closed by then, by the way. My friend said that he was beyond pissed. Hope you like this. I'm a teacher and a swim coach, so I have a bunch of entitled parent stories. And our last story was posted by user SweaterStripey83, titled, Entitled Mother Refuses to Give Up 2 seats for People Who Need Them Because Her Kids Are Tired. This story happened a couple of years ago. It is nowhere near as bad as some that I've read on here, but it definitely fits this sub. I thought about this the other day, as my brother has recently broken his arm, and I went to the other hospital with him. It reminded me of one of my trips to the hospital that still irks me to this day. 2 years ago, I broke my foot, the 5th metatarsal bone. I was actually in a cast for 8 months, as my bone just was not healing. It eventually turned out that I had a vitamin D deficiency, and so once I started to take vitamin D tablets, it started to heal. Just a little bit of info for you there, if you ever break a bone, take vitamin D. Anyway, I had to take many trips to the fracture clinic to be x-rayed. The fracture wasn't that painful, but was hard to walk on for long periods of time. One morning, I had an early appointment, and as it was still early on with the break, I was on crutches, as I couldn't bear any weight on it at this point. I hobble over to the clinic and the waiting room is absolutely full. No seats at all. So I find a space to stand in where I won't be blocking anyone. After about 20 minutes of waiting, my foot starts to ache. Not my broken foot, but the other one from having to bear my weight solely on that one. I can't shift to the other foot, so it was aching. I look around the room, and some people are giving me a few pity looks, but these are the people who can't give me a seat due to their own break. The few looking at me nod over in the direction of a large family taking up 6 seats. I look over myself and see the father in an arm cast, and his wife and 4 children, all looked over the age of 5 to 6. I hobble over to them to see if they might acknowledge me and give up a seat. As you can guess, that is not what happened at all. The family all see me, look at me, and then look away. I decided to check them out to see if they all do perhaps need the seats for whatever reason. I don't like to assume things. For context, my best friend has a muscle disorder, meaning she can't stand or walk too long and needs to sit often. You wouldn't know at all from looking at her that she had a condition. So after maybe 10 minutes, after seeing that all the family are fine, I ask the mother if it's possible to take a seat from either her or her kids, because my foot is aching, and as no one had been called in yet, I had a feeling I was going to be stood here for a long time. She just shook her head and said, "No, sorry." Now, I am not one for confrontation, but I don't suffer fools, gladly, and I absolutely despise unfairness. So I say, aside from your husband, yourself or your children don't need a seat. This is a fracture clinic, and for patients with fractures, I don't think it's fair to take up 5 seats. At this point, an elderly couple come in. The husband has had a knee surgery, from the looks of it, and although he was not in a wheelchair, it was blindingly obvious that he needed to sit down. So I then say, "Look, if you're not going to give me a seat, at least let this gentleman sit down." She replies with the epic, "We were here first, deal with it." And I wanted to smack her over the head with one of my crutches. I say, "Yes, you may have been here first, love, but it doesn't work out that way. You were taking up 5 seats unnecessarily. This gentleman needs to sit down, and I would also like to." As I said before, this is a fracture clinic for patients with, wow, you guessed it, fractures. She goes, "Look, stop asking me. You're doing my head in now. We were here first and my children are tired. I'm not having them standing when they're tired." To be of her kids says, "Mom, I don't mind standing. I'll give up a seat." He stands up and his mum shoves him back into the seat and says, No, you won't. We were here first." Some people need to learn some manners. Wow. So I say, this has nothing to do with manners. It's common human decency. Let that guy sit down, you rotten crap. Nope. The same kid as before gets up and actually helps this old dude sit down. Very sweet. His brother then stands up and tells me I can have his seat. I say thank you and sit down. The mother is not at all happy and says out loud, "Some people can be so bloody selfish. Jack," fake name, "tell them." The husband, who has been so engrossed on his phone for all of this, just sighs and shakes his head. I'm guessing he was sick of her himself at this point. I end up talking to the 2 boys who stood up, and we talk about computer games. I work with kids, and so I know a lot about kids' stuff, and what's cool at the moment, etc. Anyway, I get called in finally, and just say to the mother, "You have some very sweet, intelligent, and well-mannered kids. Tell whoever taught them that to keep it up." She looked smug and proud until she actually got the last part of my comment, but by that time, I'd hobbled too far away for her to retaliate. Alright guys, that's the end of this episode today. I think this should be the second last one of these before I'm back to the normal scheduling. Tell me what you guys thought of the stories, and as always, I hope you have a good day. Bye.